Hey guys, Jacqueline here with Zenith Home Loans. So continuing our interview series with local vendors and just past clients of mine that do really cool things for the community that we just want to make sure that everybody knows about and make sure that you have access to these different resources. And so today we have Miss Rachel Bornstein. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So why don't I'll just kind of let you take the lead. So Rachel is in the mental health field. And so I'll just kind of let you talk about a little bit about what you do, what you specialize in, and anything else that you want people to know before we jump into some questions.
Great. I'm Rachel Bornstein. I'm a therapist here in Denver, Colorado. I work for a group called Mile High Women's Wellness, and we're a bunch of independent contractors that all have come together to really give women, mothers, but also men-friendly, just services for a host of different things. So mental health services, psychiatry, occupational therapy, lactation, sleep consultants, all these things that you could use. We're kind of a group that finds the best people, putting us together, and then we're able to kind of refer you in case whatever you need, we have it. And so I do obviously therapy, and I work with women, and my specialty is in mothers. I have a PMHC, which is a perinatal mental health certification. And that's not only my who I work with, but it's my passion. I love serving mothers. I love letting them have a space that is theirs, because a lot of moms don't get that, right? They don't have a lot of time for themselves. So for me, therapy is really a place where they can focus on themselves, become better moms, become better people, and just become better for themselves and become better in their relationships. So that's really my passion and things I love to do.
That's awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing all that information. And we'll make sure that all of your contact information and stuff is included in our message, just to make sure everybody has access to you after the fact. But we'll kind of jump into some questions. And so some of the questions that I had formulated for you were kind of around the home ownership world, because obviously motherhood, we're bringing our kids into a new home, we're raising our families there and things like that. And home ownership is very emotional, like going through the entire process. And so I wanted to just touch on some of those pieces, just so that people have maybe a little bit more understanding of how to kind of walk into these things with maybe a little less fear, a little less anxiety, as much as we can. And so first question I have is, what would you recommend that partners discuss prior to starting the home search, or prior to even just moving in together for the first time or moving to a new location?
It's a great question. And it is true, right? Buying a home is a huge emotional type of investment, right? We aren't just buying a property, we're buying our place to live, where we like build our lives, right? And especially for parents, that becomes a place where a lot of memories are held. So to begin that search, I think communication is always the key, right? But obviously the number one thing is cost. Financing, right? That is the number, almost like one of the top topics that couples fight about is money. So you want to be open, you want to understand with your partner what it is that you're comfortable spending, and not only on the home, but also idea of like maintenance, furnishings, all of the bigger pieces that come into home ownership, right? Do you have one person who believes that, they want to furnish this house with IKEA, and the other person is like, I want to do custom furnishings when I buy a house? And if neither of you say that, then all of a sudden you're in this place where you're like, wait a second, what do you want to do? And how much do you want to spend? And wait, do you want this? The idea of having those open conversations to be able to talk about them and say, hey, this is what I want to spend. This is how I think, this is how long I can live with that kitchen if we need to renovate it. And this is how I can live with it, right? And understanding that piece. Because if we don't talk about it, the problem is we end up assuming, right? And we start basically taking our own narrative and putting it on our partners. And no matter how wonderful of a relationship you have, you are not a mind reader.
Right.
And so having those open conversations and understanding, what is going to be the best for your family and how you can compromise and what's important to you and what's important to you, and finding ways to kind of blend those, I think is a great start when you are starting to think about buying a house.
And what about, what kind of recommendations would you have for maybe a couple that is, they're blending families? And so currently we both live separately, and now we're all going to be moving together. Maybe there's some kids involved. Are there any extra, obviously we want to follow some of the same guidelines that you talked about with finances and things like that, but what other things should we consider when we're doing a blended family environment from that perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. Gosh, it's really about understanding how you're going to do this, right? In an actual tangible way. Who's going to be sharing rooms, right? Where are we going to put our different things? Where are things going to go? What does, maybe if you're blending families with children, right? What does this child want? What does this child want? Do they want to share a room? Are they comfortable? Are you comfortable sharing a bathroom? Gosh, there's so many of these like very tangible things of laying out plans that I think sometimes we kind of just fall into instead of actually discussing and making a game plan, right? But there's also the idea of talking to your kids and talking to each other and saying, what are you comfortable with? Right. What feels okay for you? And also recognizing that this is a change. And so when you go into that change, change is hard no matter what, even when it's a positive change, even when it's something maybe everyone wants and everyone's excited about, it's still hard. Right. So recognizing that even when you go into this, you guys are moving into a home together, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be maybe conflict, there's going to be, hard feelings, things like that. But these are all normal parts of the process of a really big change, right? Moving is a huge stressor in life. I think it's like the third highest stressor in life, is moving, third or fourth. And so you have to bring that into knowing that even if it's good change, even if this is something everybody wanted, it's still going to be hard. So how are you going to navigate that? And also giving yourself grace to know that it's okay if there are fights and arguments, or if people are right. If we have to, fight about this room or fight about what's going to go here, that's okay, as long as everyone's being heard and you're not beating yourself up for the fact that it's a hard time. Right.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And so what's the best way for partners or family just to consider some of their options, and maybe some of the same conversation when we're looking at maybe relocating with when it comes to moving to a new state for maybe a job or something, or moving to a location, maybe we're moving way across town, so we're not going to be as close to family. Is there any extra steps that somebody should consider when looking into something like that, for either for themselves, so even if it's just me moving, or I'm moving my family and my kids?
Right, definitely. Moving is cool, right? It's fun it's kind of romanticized, right? This idea of like, we're going to move to this new place and it's going to be so exciting, and we're going to be able to, learn more, and our kids are going to be able to get to experience this new thing. And it is, right? There's so many opportunities there for growth and for all of that. It also could be very isolating, right? Moving to a new place, moving out of our routines, right? We kind of talk about routines with kids, but as adults, we kind of crave that too, right? We have our grocery store, we have our doctors, we have our route home from work. We have all of these things that makes life kind of feel comforting. And when we shift that, it can feel like upheaval. It can feel a little uncomfortable. And so recognizing that in yourself, right? Saying, again, we're moving away. So what am I going to do when kind of that excitingness is over? So when we move, say you move, across state, or you move away from family, it's exciting. You get to see all these new places, going to new restaurants, you're going to walks, you're like meeting new people. And then probably, sometime you start settling in, and it can feel lonely, right? You don't have those normal things. So knowing that, it's going to take time. I think a lot of hardship around moving can sometimes feel like we want to speed up the process, right? We want to feel like, okay, we moved, I'm here, I want everything to be good. And then we kind of are like, wait, why am I like uncomfortable? Why don't I have friends yet? Why don't I
Right.
have my place to go? Why don't I have my workout class? Right. All of these things take time. It takes a long time to kind of build that family,
Right.
that community, that space for ourselves. So
Mhm.
number one, just recognizing that it's going to take time.
Mhm.
But also more tangible things is asking yourself those questions. Okay, who's going to be my doctor?
Mhm.
When we need childcare, who can we call? When I need a dog sitter, who can I rely on, right? And
Mhm.
problem solving some of these. Maybe you Google a good dog sitter. Maybe you ask your neighbor for childcare recommendations, right? Exploring your neighborhood, going out there and actually doing kind of the legwork.
Right.
That's the thing about moving to a new place. It will take work, probably emotionally and physically,
Mhm.
um, but just giving yourself patience to get used to it, and understand that, family is, they're only a call away, right?
Right.
And you can always go back and things like that, but giving
Mhm.
yourself enough time to acclimate,
Right.
right? Sometimes we get very quick to be like, pull a trigger and be like, I want to go home. This is not comfortable.
Mhm.
Change is uncomfortable. And
Right.
sometimes you can learn a lot from that, but you have to give it the time and space to appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. Those are all very, very valid points. And I think even especially as adults, we're just like, this is just so far out of my comfort zone. And we forget that you probably spent, like, I personally, I've lived in Colorado my entire life. And so to move me, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't, this is where I live and I'm not ever changing. My husband's moved a ton. And the thought of like uprooting everything and moving somewhere else that's away from my family, my friends for 38 years, this is my place. Like that would be a lot for me. And I think just to your point of just, hey, it's going to take a little time to reacclimate because it took you 38 years or however long you're in that last place to get comfortable. It shouldn't hopefully take another 38 years to get comfortable again, but it's going to take more than 5 minutes probably.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Perfect. And so what about for kids? Like what's the best way that we can help our kids, especially when we're moving to, maybe we're pulling out of one school and going into another one or something like that? Like what's the best way we can help them adjust as best as possible, or at least like maybe there's some questions that we should be asking them or something like that, because kids are hard. They don't know a lot of times like how they're dealing with their emotions or why they have these big feelings and things like that. And it might be a little bit harder for us to kind of figure out what it is that they need. So is there maybe some recommendations there?
Sure. It is hard, right? It's hard. We said it's hard for adults, right? So when your kids move, it's a change. It's routine. It's their comfort. The things they feel that are very normal to them are no longer normal, right? And they have to, make new friends. Maybe they have to get used to a new room or a new space, and that feels, it can feel icky. And kids react in different ways, right? They might
Mm-hmm.
act out. They may turn into themselves and not talk a lot, right? That kind of like not knowing what to say. Um, but I think a great place to start is really just talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And asking, how are you feeling? And not only asking how they are feeling, because, like you said, sometimes they don't know what they're feeling. Talking to them about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You moved, it's hard for you. You're trying to make new friends. You're trying to find your grocery store. Saying
Right.
to them, "Hey, I know we just made this big move, and I find it hard because I am getting used to this new place and I'm getting used to new friends." Making them feel validated and
Right.
normal in their feelings, and making them feel like, oh, it's not just me, my mom, my dad, my grown-ups, right, are feeling this way. And
Mm-hmm.
so the idea that that's normal, I think, is one way to
Mm-hmm.
start that, right? Giving them that normalcy of feelings and understanding that whatever's going on for them is okay.
Right.
And then also just giving them the space, right? Sometimes we're very, what's wrong? Well, what can I do to fix it?
Right.
How can I
Right.
change it? Because of course we don't want to see our kids upset. We don't want to see them sad. And so it's like our immediate want as parents to fix it, right? But things like moving and change and all that, there's not really a fix. I mean, of course we can, set up play dates and add them to activity lists and do and allow them to pick the color of their new bedroom to get excited, right? These things are real things we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, the pieces of it just being a hard time. This is going to be difficult. You will be okay. I am here for you. That really can feel really comforting rather than just trying to make it better.
Right.
Because we don't want our kids feeling like they're doing something wrong
Yeah.
by being sad or by being stressed or anxious. We just want to say, it's okay that you feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm going to set you up on the basketball team, and you can make new friends that way, right? Doing both and,
Yeah.
right? Being able to validate while also maybe doing some of those things in the neighborhood to bring them in and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah. You know, maybe we just all sit down and we watch Inside Out and we all like just
We all get
recommend
more
that movie.
feelings.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Okay. And so home buying, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. So home buying, home ownership, house projects, all of those things can be super stressful. So what do you see to be the best way to handle those types of stressful situations to get through them with little conflict? Because obviously we've acknowledged that, hey, this is going to be stressful and it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable at times and things like that. And so we know there's probably going to be little things, little fires that arise in there. Like, what's the best way for us to manage that so that we don't start picking these fights with our spouses, or we don't like go off on one of our children because they're just irritating us and they happen to walk into the room at just the wrong time when something else was going on? Like, what's the best way for us to manage those kinds of things?
Right. It's a great question. And the one thing I'll point out and kind of turn back around, but like how to do this with little conflict,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that that's not a thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's
like,
true.
Very stressful situations are going to bring conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And stop. Right.
Yeah.
That idea of hoping that, oh, this is going to be great and it's
Right.
awesome and everything's awesome and we're not going to fight and we're not going to argue.
That's not a thing.
Not a thing. We all do it. We all get stressed. We all, get emotional about these things. Like our home is our place. Our home is our space, right? And changing it and doing different things to it and wanting it to be perfect. Oh gosh,
Right.
like that brings up a lot of stress and anxiety and worry and the people closest to us, unfortunately, usually take the brunt of our stress.
Right.
So I think the first thing is knowing that there is going to be conflict, not trying to pretend that that's not going to be there, because if we don't even acknowledge it, then we're just setting ourselves up for failure. Right? So first acknowledging, okay, this is going to be hard, and maybe talking to our partner, talking to our kids, again, about these things that come up. Listen, this is going to be a tough 6 months. And what do we think we can do in order to make it better? Or when you see me getting upset, can you say, hey mom, yellow light, like telling me to stop because they see me getting upset, right? Putting those things in place for like somebody else to be able to say, hey, I can see you're upset. And that's right. Not just being like, hey, calm down,
Right.
but giving kind of like a signal like, oh, hey, yellow light, red light, like you're getting upset and it's all okay, can almost feel very comforting, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, knowing that there is going to be conflict,
Right.
Also having signs with our partners to recognize how they can help us manage that stress. Also, I would say the best thing is knowing yourself. Oh my gosh, right? We have to know ourselves to be able to manage our stress. And are we somebody who, when we get stressed, we go in ourselves and don't talk and get like, and then stonewall people and get very isolated, right? Or are we somebody who, when we get stressed, we need people and we need help and we need support, right? Recognizing who we are, and when we feel not great, we can recognize, oh, I'm not talking to my friends right now because I'm stressed and that's making me more sad. So when that happens, I'm going to call a friend. Right. Or when I'm stressed and I'm feeling stressed and I don't have a lot of people to talk to. And right now I just need to, I don't know, go for a run. Or I need to go to a restaurant and like, have a meal. Doing things to really take care of yourself. I like to say there's also the idea of, it's called HALT, HALT, right? And it's not doing stuff when you're hungry, anxious, lonely, or tired. Right. And so
Right.
when we're feeling stressed, being like, wait a second, and you're gonna yell, or you're gonna, piss off somebody or do
Right.
something, stopping yourself and saying, wait a second, am I hungry? Am I anxious? No, is it anxious or angry? I think it's anxious.
Okay.
Lonely, tired, right? Am
Mhm.
I any of these things? And what can I do to fix those things before I get, before I go off my rocker, right? Because there's things we can do to make those better, right? If we're tired, we can nap. If we're lonely, we can reach out to somebody, right? We can, if we're hungry, eat. God, hangry is real.
Yeah, I
Right?
love that hunger is the first thing on that list.
Right? Right? It's a big joke, but it's totally, totally real. Wait, now I'm looking at it. It's angry. Sorry, not anxious.
Angry.
Angry,
Okay.
right? And so that idea of, okay, how can I, because those are solvable. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, those are solvable, right? And so if we're feeling like we're getting heightened, if God, this renovation is taking 2 months over time and it's $10,000 over budget,
Hmm.
right? Recognizing that that's a pain, but that's a pain that may not be our partner's fault or may not be our kids'
Right.
fault. And okay, what do I need to do to get over that annoyance? And taking care of yourself. That's
Yeah.
really what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
That's how you can lessen the conflict, I guess.
Yeah, I think that that's huge what you've said. There is just kind of paying attention to like, no one knows you better than you know yourself. And just being able to recognize what types of search situations are going to further aggravate you and trying to like do whatever you can to do that self-care, or maybe just step back from the situation, take a break, whatever it is, just to kind of reassess and not take something out on a partner or a child or a friend or whatever the case may be, because it's something that's completely beyond your control. Because a lot of the home buying process and just kind of things that are going on in the market completely out of everybody else's control. When it comes to home renovations, that whole thing is just completely out of anybody's control. And there's just like, just assume it's going to be late and over budget, because that's kind of the best way to just be prepared for the end result. We went through a home renovation project, and I stupidly started it when I was my son was 8 weeks old, and I'm like, this was dumb in hindsight. I'm not sure why I did this to us,
Right.
but
Were you tired? Probably, right? Like,
yes,
oh, I
definitely. I
started
was
that when I was
definitely hungry.
tired,
I was
right?
absolutely angry. I was totally tired. I
Right.
was definitely lonely. I was all of the things times 10. And on top of it, I had a screaming baby. So in a house full of sawdust and construction dust and the whole thing. So those will definitely turn any situations around. I remember asking them at some point, I'm like, can you guys just not come tomorrow? Like, I just need a day where you're not here. And so fortunately, like those are the situations where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to lose my head here. So you guys just need to go today. And like,
But
we'll
see,
just move on.
knowing yourself,
Yeah.
right? Knowing that piece that, like, God, I really need a break. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't even care if that means we're going to be a day off schedule on this. Like, I'm not going to push through this just so that I will become more and more miserable and then
Right.
become, right, not a good partner, not a good
Mm-hmm.
mom, not a good being to ourselves, right?
Right.
This idea that you knew that and you said, I need a break, so I'm going to
Yeah.
take it,
Yeah.
right? That's knowing yourself. And that's
Yeah.
saying, hold up, let's take a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is one thing about therapy that you wish that people knew?
Gosh, there's so many. I'm such a mental health advocate. It's truly the thing I'm probably most passionate about. And
Mm-hmm.
it was even interesting. I'll bring up something you said in the last part, that most people, we know ourselves better than anyone. You said
Mm-hmm.
that. The truth is that that's not always true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sometimes we do, and that's great, and maybe we have some of that awareness. But the thing therapy can really help us understand is that,
Yeah.
right? And the thing is, none of us, a lot of us didn't grow up with this, right? We didn't
Right.
grow up with understanding emotions. There was no class for understanding all these feelings that are within us. And the one, there's so many things that we have in common as humans that we kind of forget about. But one of them is that emotional experience. We all feel these things, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to describe them, being able to say words that match our emotions, being
Uh-huh.
able to understand our own selves and our feelings, and when we're stressed, what is our trigger? When we're feeling a certain way, how does that come out in our behavior? All of these things are things you can learn in therapy. And it's such a beautiful, like, safe space that people can take, right? People can have to just kind of understand themselves and have somebody, I mean, hopefully finding the right person who can say, this is normal. This is okay. The way you feel is okay. Who you are is okay. There's just like a beauty in that I think is unmatched, truly. But one of the things that I really like to talk about, because physical health is really like all, we talk about workout classes, going and, gyms and eating the right foods and all of that. That's such a big piece of our society, right? And in the same way, we take care of our physical health, right? We go on runs, we lift weights, we do Zumba, we swim, we do all these different things because we want to not only strengthen our body, but we also want to take care of it and what's the word? Like make up for in the future when, we'll get older, our bodies get older, we want to strengthen it and keep it that way, right? We want to maintain our health. To me, that's what you do in therapy, right?
Yeah.
You're strengthening your own connection with yourself. You're strengthening, understanding who you are and what's real to you and being your authentic self, right? We're strengthening those skills, but you're also maintaining a health, because things are going to come up. Right? People die. There are pandemics. There are hard things that happen in life. And if we don't have the ability to know ourselves or know how we deal with things or understand coping skills or grief or any of those things, it's going to be a lot harder when those things come up. Yeah. So it's about maintaining and being able to know things about us in a better way, rather than going to therapy when you have to, put out the fire. That's probably my least favorite time of therapy is, just trying to put out the fire because, you can only do so much when things are so bad. Right. And it takes a while to kind of move back from that. And I think if we really prioritize mental health more, we'd have less people in those fires. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a trend towards more open dialogue around mental health, especially in the post-pandemic sort of world that we live in now? And like, especially as it pertains to like parents and moms and things like that. I feel like I've seen a lot more conversation around mental health than I ever have. And I feel like the pandemic really brought that out. Do you see similar trends in all the work that you do and the patients that you see?
Yeah, I do. It's really like, it's nice to see how we have moved as a society, that like we are talking about these things, and gosh, like postpartum depression is actually named, and it's not just, oh, you're fine, you have a beautiful child, right? These things are actually becoming are out there. People can identify with them. And I think the conversation has began. But I also don't think we're there yet. Yeah. Right? We're starting it. It's becoming more common to be able to discuss these things. I think there's still pushback, maybe from people that are still unsure and think, oh, therapy is weak, or not being happy is a choice, or things like this that are very old, stereotypical type of things that we all have kind of heard. And I think as time goes on, we've definitely changed that dialogue, but yet it's not enough, right? We want to keep pushing forward. Accessibility, I think, is a huge problem with mental health, getting the care, it being affordable, that kind of thing, that we have a long ways to go on that. And so, yes, and we still have so much space to move forward. And I don't want to undermine the progress we have made, because it is good to know that we are having these conversations. It's good to know that you feel like you've heard a lot more, because that means that there's actually progress being made. Right. And we have a lot more we can do. Yeah.
What about, obviously we know about postpartum anxiety and depression in women. Do you guys or are you seeing any trends in postpartum impacts on fathers?
Hmm. There is, I don't want to take out or read this fact wrong, but I believe it's 1 in 7 women will experience postpartum depression, and I'm almost sure it's 1 in 10 men will
Interesting.
experience postpartum depression.
Interesting.
So it's a lot more common than we think.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit taboo, right? It's a bit
Right.
like, wait, why are men experiencing this? But
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that it's a huge transition for women, it's a huge transition for a man as well, right? Taking
Mm-hmm.
on that role. And it is something that I wouldn't even say I've seen more of, although when I hear even some of my clients talking about it, it
Mm-hmm.
does kind of put that light bulb in my head where I'm like, do you think he's experiencing postpartum depression? And I
Mm-hmm.
think some women are even a little unsure how to respond
Right.
to that, right? Because they're like,
Yeah.
wait a second, what are they doing? I'm
Yeah.
feeding, and my whole life has been turned upside down. What do you
Right.
mean, right? But it's definitely there, and it's definitely real, and it's something that, again, extending that conversation beyond just women, and it
Mm-hmm.
also being men, and also giving them the validation that this is a huge change in their life as
Right.
well. And it takes a lot of effort to have a child,
Yeah.
and the responsibilities that puts on them, that's also real. And so not discluding them from that conversation is, I think, part of this progress that I hope to see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So last question that I have for you today is, what is something that you wish clients considering therapy would ask or maybe seek out or just know?
Mm, mm, that's
Mhm.
a that's a tough one. What I don't think the thing is, I don't think anyone needs to know anything. Like, I don't want to say anything here to be like, you should know this when you come to
Yeah.
therapy, right?
Right.
That's not luckily that's not what we do, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
try to do it arms wide open if you want help, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I would say is a good maybe question is questioning yourself
Mm-hmm.
before maybe you start taking this plunge. Why do I want to do this? Right. And I think within that, am I ready to change?
Mm-hmm.
I think is a huge, I don't know, it's something that we don't really like. It's not, we're kind of ourselves. We are who we are. We kind of like live in this, maybe we live in like a little bubble, and we kind of like go about our lives. And the thing is, though, if things aren't working for you anymore, if you're not happy, if you're seeing things that aren't working for you, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not living up to what you would hope, right? You're not being authentically yourself.
Right.
I think you want to start asking yourself, okay, but am I willing to make that change? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to look across from somebody and them to say, hey, what if you did it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And to be open to that and receptive to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like to maybe say it in the way of, if you're okay with right now your world being black and white, therapy kind of opens you up to a whole world of gray.
Mm-hmm.
We recognize that there isn't just a right and wrong. We realize there isn't just, you know, the one way to do things. There's many different ways that people approach, gosh, anything, home ownership,
Mm-hmm.
parenthood, all of these things. And
Right.
no one way is right.
Right.
And so having that open dialogue with yourself to say, gosh, if somebody questions me and questions, what am I doing? Am I ready to say, oh yeah, that's okay if I want to change and I want to learn, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
having that open conversation with ourselves is a great place to start.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I lied to you. I have one more question now. So what if I'm considering therapy? Like, what's the best way, or how would somebody, because I feel like, okay, so I've made the decision, I'm ready to make a change, and I want to get therapy. How the heck do I find somebody to take care of me? Like, is there like websites? Is there a specific type of therapy I should look for? Like, how would somebody go about that task? Because that in and of itself could feel overwhelming. I know it felt overwhelming for me when I started therapy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when we talk about the change in mental health care, that's one of the things that I hope to see different, right?
Mm-hmm.
This idea of when you're struggling, gosh, the hardest thing to do now is to go figure out how to get help, because that's
Right.
one extra thing you have to do, which
Mm-hmm.
you're already overwhelmed, right? And so I wish it was I think, again, we're getting better. We're not there yet. I think a great website is Psychology Today. I think they have a fantastic list of, you can really just type in where you live and they give you just clinicians from all different walks of life. And of course, then it's difficult for the average person to be able to figure out what they're talking about, solution focused or psychodynamic, like all of these, like, counseling words that, maybe the regular person wouldn't be able to decipher. And so number one, Psychology Today, I think, is a great start. You can also just Google, right? And peruse websites and see if any of, people's, what they write, if any of those things kind of speak to you. I think, like I use the word solution focused. So a solution focused therapist, if they say, I'm solution focused, what they're saying is, I'm here to solve your problem. You're coming to me with a problem and I am going to solve it for you, right? Or not solve it for you, but help you solve it, give you tools, coping skills. Okay, we're out the door. Usually it's a quick type of therapy, right? Something like a psychodynamic is much more the Freudian kind of thing we all kind of know about. Probably a little updated, which is good. More about childhood. Where do you come from? Why do you feel the way you do? Why do you think the way you do, right? Understanding that maybe that problem that you came in with has to do with a lot more than just the problem. And so all of these, and there's many different types of how you do therapy. And there's not one better than the other. The best thing I think anyone can do is Google Psychology Today, pick a few people, call them. Usually therapists offer a 15 to 20 minute free consultation. I know I do. And that's really a space that you can just get to know the person who's on the other line, right? I use that time to really say, hey, I want to get to know what's going on, how I can help. And then I can tell you a bit about me, how I work. And during those conversations, pay attention to yourself. Do you feel heard? Do you feel understood? Do you feel like what this person is saying kind of vibes with what you feel? Or doesn't it feel good, right? And you might not be able to get that in a phone consultation, right? You can go see somebody and maybe it's kind of like, this doesn't feel great, or it doesn't feel right. And the idea is, therapy isn't one size fits all.
Right.
It might take time to find the right clinician for you. We call it the therapeutic relationship, which is really the most important thing in therapy when it comes to progress and change and reaching goals, is really about that relationship. So finding somebody you connect with, and knowing that if you go to that person and it's not great, you don't feel like you're being heard, they don't kind of get you, maybe you guys just are different,
right?
Know that it's not therapy that's the problem, it just might not be the right fit. And then there's lots of other people who do the same work in a much different way that can feel a lot better for you. So patience with the search and patience with yourself.
Gotcha. Awesome. That is all the questions that I had for you today. I really appreciate your time. Is there any last words that you want to leave us with today, or anything else that we didn't address that you want to make sure people know about?
I'm like thinking, like, I feel like, oh gosh, I want to leave some wise words. But I don't know if I can.
That's okay.
Yeah, more so as
you had a lot of wise words today.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully, this continues to kind of open up that conversation around mental health and makes it more normalized and makes it okay, right? I think, now that I'm saying it, the thing I'd like to leave us with is the fact that, we're human beings. We all want connection. That's what we live off of. And in this world we're kind of in today, connection is kind of not as easy to come by, right? Computers and social media and those things, that doesn't really bring into that real connection we need. And so it's okay to need to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. Therapy, really, as much as it's like stigmatized, the reason it's so helpful is that it's people. And it's okay to need people sometimes and to need help sometimes. And I think that's my closing statement for today.
I love it. It's perfect. Well, I appreciate it, Rachel. Like I said, we'll have all of your information within the video here today so that people can get in touch with you if they want. But I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.